Hi everyone, and welcome back out to Harvest Hills Range. You can see today I'm inside our home gym and we're going to take a look at working out. Is it worth it? And why should you even think about doing it? Now that may seem like a bit of an obvious question, but I'm going to tackle some ideas today that are a bit different than the norm, and we're going to look at what it is that actually drives the desire to work out and how do we think about this in the big picture, more or less the mental approach to working out versus the physical approach to working out. Hi, I'm Dr. Arland Hill, and I have a passion for all things nutrition, all things health and wellness related. And today I want to dive into this conversation with you and really look at working out and asking the question, is it worth it for you? Now, there's three things that I want to look at in this video or that I want to share with you. And the first is going to be taking a look at the mindset and differentiating motivation versus dedication and what that means for working out. Then I want to jump into reasons that workouts fail, reasons that individuals don't follow through on their workouts. And then lastly, I want to look at how do we increase the desire to work out so that you can ultimately meet your health goals. So those are what we're going to be talking about today. Those are the topics we're going to be talking about. So with that in mind, let's jump into this first one, which is motivation versus dedication. Now, everyone talks about getting motivated to go out and to do your workout or to get motivated to go to the gym. But let's be realistic. The first of the year for most people, where all the New Year's resolutions come around, pretty much shows the obvious, which is that if you're solely depending on motivation to drive your desire to work out, you're not going to be working out very long. We know that motivation, better known as willpower sometimes, is fleeting. There's times when your motivation is good, there's times when your motivation is not. And this is not solely related to working out, this is related to most things in life. So how do we change that approach? Well, the way that we do that is instead of thinking about being motivated to go work out, a better approach to this is to look at dedicating your time to working out. When you're dedicated to something, it's more personal to you. You have a connection to it. I can think about a couple of examples related to this. So for example, the obvious one that comes to mind for me is that I'm married to Leah. I am dedicated to my marriage. I'm committed to all things related to my marriage. So, when there's ups and downs, it doesn't mean that the motivation's always there, but the dedication's there. Leah likes to joke about this sometimes and talk about there's dedication and then there's the reality of the rest of the time, right? And so the reality here is that, yes, your motivation is going to be fleeting, but when you're dedicated to something like a marriage, you see it through. You stick through it regardless of the ups and the downs. So you can ride those lows until you hit those highs. And if you're just solely depending on motivation, when that low period kicks in, that motivation starts to wane and you're not going to be able to continue to pull more and more from the motivation tank, so to say, and over time you're going to become less likely to follow through on your workouts. So think about being dedicated to your working out and knowing that not every workout is going to be a great workout. The best competitive athletes aren't on their A game every day, day in and day out, at every practice and at every game. That's just not reality. And so if we focus on dedicating and think about what it is, the reason we're going to be dedicated to a workout, that's what's going to sustain us and that's what's going to keep us involved over the long term. Now, that leads me to the second topic here, which are reasons for failure. And I feel like you have to understand what it is that allows failure to onset. And if we understand where failure has the propensity to come from, then we can do things to stand in the way of that and not let that failure onset. So let's go through a couple here. Now, number one is going to be lack of goal setting. I want you to think about anything that you have a genuine interest in, anything that you look to aspire to or look to achieve. You know, even if you think, I'll use this analogy comes to mind for me for some reason, which is if you look at education, high school education, college education, graduate education, doesn't really matter. If you look at any of these levels of education, you don't just show up one day and then show up the next day and all of a sudden you've got a diploma or a degree. No, that's not the way that works. You take continual, consistent steps up until the point of graduation, which is the goal. The same thing is true for working out. If we set a goal for ourselves, something we're trying to achieve, we can see a rationale for going and following through on that effort. As opposed to if we just show up and say, well, we're going to work out. There really is no purpose behind that. We have no intention of what it is that we're actually doing. So we need to look at working out and focus on working out with the idea of trying to achieve a goal. There needs to be a rationale, there needs to be a set objective for why I'm going to take action. So set a goal. Another common reason for failure is going to be focusing on fat loss or weight loss. This is a recipe for failure, flat out. It's probably the easiest way to say this. And the reason being for this is that what happens when you start working out and you don't drop as much weight as you ideally thought to? Or maybe you're just learning the ropes of working out and you're making the wrong choices about the type of activities that you're engaging in, and it's not creating a drop in numbers on the scale. You're not seeing the pounds come off. Your waistline isn't improving. What do you do then? Well, this is where we have to forget the weight, forget the numbers per se. Those things over time will improve, but they're different from everybody. And this is also a problem and a reason for failure is that we tend to compare ourselves against others versus comparing ourselves against us. We have the ability to compete against ourselves and to track our own progress looking at who we are in the mirror. Make sure that you're improving. Be thankful for the results that you do get, and not to say that you shouldn't strive harder or push harder. Absolutely you should, but what you shouldn't do is always compare yourself against other people. And so we don't want to always use the scale or use the tape measure as the end-all be-all for whether or not we're having success. Other things that you can look at, just to pose the opposite side of this, is, am I more physically capable? Do I have better endurance? Do I have better strength? And am I able to do things now more easily that may have been challenging in the past? Those are the types of things that we should look at, and those are the things that ultimately matter at the end of the day. So don't just look at tape measures and scales as whether or not you're having success. And the third reason that often pops up for failure has to do with being told that you have to exercise and approaching your activity, whatever you define your exercise as, approaching that exercise because someone told you you had to do it. Whether it was the fitness guru on social media, or whether it was the doctor that told you that, or whether it was your trainer that told you this, or maybe you heard some expert on television that told you you had to go exercise. Here's the problem with that. When you're told you have to go do something, you're not mentally committed to that. And over time, that commitment is going to wane that you did bring to the effort. So you're being told to have to do something. We all inherently have a bit of a rebellious nature to us. And so if we're told we have to go do something, at some point we tend to push back on that, and we don't want to follow through. We want to not exercise. We want to maybe fall back on some of our old habits because they're comfortable for us. So don't do something. Don't engage in exercise just because someone told you to do it. Engage in exercise for the reasons that you want to do it, that are personal to you, not just a generic recommendation from some authoritative figure. Now, those are reasons for failure. Let's go the opposite direction here, and let's talk about what you can do to increase your personal desire to exercise. To me, one of the things that jumps to the top of the list on this is physical capability, meaning you want the ability to do things, to not have to feel overly exerted when you do put forth an effort. So, for example, that could mean playing outdoor sport with your kids. It could go and mean picking up your grandchild. It could mean your wife asks you to help her hang some fixture in the home and you're holding it above your head and you're struggling to hold it above your head. You're not physically capable. No one wants to be in that situation. No one likes to think that they are unable to do the things, just the basic functionality of life, your activities of daily living. No one wants to feel like they're unable to do that. To me, and the reason I put this at the top of the list as far as things that create desire, this is one of the things that creates desire for me. I'm out here at the ranch, I'm doing physical labor, and by nature, I tend to be more physically capable just because of the nature of activity that I have to do out here. So why in the world would I even bother with having a home gym and going and doing that? The reason for me personally on that is that I know that there are times that I'm going to have to do things out at the ranch, maybe even in a bad weather situation where I'm going to have to act and I'm going to have to call on my physical stamina to be able to accomplish a task that is related to the health of my the health or the welfare of my animals, whatever it is. Maybe I need to move a piece of equipment or something. All of those things are important, and I don't want to be burdened by not feeling physically capable. I'll tell you an example that really stuck to my mind on this was Leah and I went to go pick up some items, and I had the trailer behind the truck, and inadvertently the truck got backed into some mud and we had to pull the truck out. The gentleman who ended up helping us pull the truck out, thankfully they were there, but these gentlemen were probably in their mid-50s, maybe late 50s, and we were just tying the tow strap between the two trucks, and just to get down and reach up under the truck to tie these tow straps was such a physical labor for these gentlemen. And I thought, I don't want to be like that when I'm that age. I want to be able to do the activities that I still enjoy doing. I want to go out and do physical labor and do things that I want to have pride in. And so one of the things that we can use to create desire is just simply, again, to have physical capability to do the things that we want to do and the things that we enjoy. We don't want to be burdened by this declining level of physical endurance and physical capability as we age. Exercise helps us offset that, and that's one way we can create desire. Now, another way you can create desire for exercise is looking at it as part of rounding out your overall wellness plan. We hear about getting adequate amounts of sleep. We hear about eating the right diet, whatever that is for you personally. And you make those efforts to go to bed at a particular time and get the right quantity of sleep at the right time, and then you're making the right efforts to improve your dietary intake. But when you look at adding exercise to that equation, exercise makes these other components even easier. We all know exercise is beneficial for us as humans, so if we can incorporate exercise and look at it as a part of this well-rounded approach that we're taking, and not this single entity that we have to go forth and do, but yet it enhances what we're doing with the diet. If we combine our exercise and diet, we can actually get more out of our exercise by having the right foods there with us. So the two work together. If we put forth a diligent effort at the right times when we go and we do our exercise, we're going to see that it's easier to fall asleep. Our sleep is likely going to be better. Our mind's not going to be racing when we lay down. We're not going to wake up through the night with our mind racing, and we'll wake up in the morning feeling more rested. So another way to create desire with your exercise is just to think about it as part of an overall well-rounded wellness approach, or another facet of your overall wellness approach. Now, one of the other reasons that exercise can create desire is looking at it as creating a sense of accomplishment. And here's the great thing about this. I talked about goal setting earlier, and goal setting is to some extent, we look at that as when we've hit the pinnacle of where we want to be. We can achieve that goal and then we can set the next goal. But the great thing about exercise is that each bout of activity, each exercise session creates accomplishment. Every time we do that, we're one step closer towards whatever that ultimate goal that we set for ourselves was. And so when you look at your exercise and you're thinking about ways that you want to increase your desire to want to go into the exercise session, ask yourself, do I like feeling successful? Do I like feeling accomplished? Absolutely. We all love that feeling. It's part of what keeps us going as humans and keeps us reaching for the next thing out there, is that we created a sense of accomplishment. We were able to achieve something. And so when you look at your exercise sessions, if you think about that exercise as this may be intense for this period of time, but it's going to be short-lived, and if I get through this, I accomplish something. And think about what that means at the start of the day. If you start your day out with having accomplished something, for some reason inherently it feels that much easier to accomplish things throughout the remainder of the day. And if you exercise later in the day, and let's say you exercise after work and you have a good workout or even a mediocre workout, but you got through the workout, it sets you up for success the next day. So there's that sensation of achievement and success that we want to follow through on. Now, I have one last one for you here that I think is a great reason to exercise, which is honestly, it's an easy way to start to create desire, and it's one of these things that seems to build over time. And when you reach a certain point with your exercise, I think this is the reason that a lot of individuals stay engaged with their exercise routine, and that is that we get a dopamine response. You've heard people talk about having the runner's high. You can do this with your own workouts. You don't necessarily have to go run to get these endorphin releases. You can also get this with regards to weight training or other types of activity. But the point is that the engagement of activity, the engagement in some type of exercise session is going to stimulate that dopamine release. It's going to stimulate these pleasure centers in the brain, and you're going to get that natural high. The great thing about that is that carries on into other facets of your life. It carries on into your work environment. It carries on into your family environment. It carries on into your personal achievement. So when you start thinking about exercise and you ask yourself, do I want to be successful? Do I want to push myself in other areas of my life? Of course we do. Nobody wants to be a loser. We want to look back at the end of the day, the end of the month, the end of the year, and know that we were able to chip away and make progress in our life. And that can start with just having these little dopamine responses. You have these little successes with your workouts, and that carries over into other facets of your life. And then you look back after a year has gone by and you realize, wow, it wasn't just these little daily achievements or these little routine achievements that I had. It was this big success that I made over the course of an entire calendar year. So with that being said, guys, I wanted to give you a different way of thinking about exercise. I wanted to share some things that I've personally thought about with this, some things that I think maybe can be of value to you, not just coming to the exercise and saying, I've got to do physical labor, I've got to go do a physical activity. There's very much a mental component to this. Exercise, frankly, the more I've become engaged in the science of exercise and understanding how to do it correctly, exercise is actually more of a mental engagement than it is even physical. And this is the great thing, because it doesn't just build our physical body, our physical capabilities, our physical stamina. At the same time, it's also building mental stamina and endurance. And so if you think about focusing, to reiterate here, if you think about focusing on dedication, not necessarily motivation, if you think about avoiding these common reasons for failure and then looking at how do you create your own personal desire, I think you'll find that when you do go forward and you start to implement some of these different activities, these exercises that I'm going to be sharing with you in these videos, I think when you go to implement that, you'll find it a lot easier to stay committed to the process, because now you're dedicated. You're mentally dedicated, you're physically dedicated, and it just gets easier over time. So with that being said, I hope you found this information valuable. Hey, if you are looking for more information like this, make sure you come back to the channel. If you found this information valuable, make sure that you hit the like button there and share it with someone if you think that they can benefit from it. If you're looking for additional information of what we do out here at the ranch, check out harvesthillsranch.com. And if you're looking for more information related to what I do in the clinic with patients, go to drarlandhill.com. Until next time, guys, see you soon.